to have a great show. I'm very much looking forward to it. We're going to talk about Jerusalem. We're going to talk about the signals that Jerusalem is sending us right now. Part of that conversation will be Ramadan. We will have a conversation about some of the politics right now hitting Jerusalem. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what's going on in the Israeli Knesset and why it should be of particular interest to us. We are going to talk about a video that I'm going to be releasing in depth on Friday regarding Chucky Schumer and some of the things that he said. Believe it or not, he said some very intelligent things, but not all the way. We had to go back and correct a whole bunch of stuff. The other thing that we're going to talk about is anything, and not everything, but anything else that is happening that's contributing to the, let's just say this, the pressure cooker right now that is the Middle East. So before we do that, I just want to simply say this. I want to say thank you guys for your support. You guys are awesome. All the super chats, the super stickers. It's always a blessing to be able to see those things and see your support. Thank you for that. I think in terms of the supers, we have just a few that I want to acknowledge. You guys are great. Brad Brunn, of course, as usual. You say a lady in Australia who identifies as a dog made headlines after being on a talk show. That's nothing. In the U.S., we have a show with 5 dogs who identify as women. It's called The View.
Are they still up and running?
Oh, yeah. But I'm sorry, Brad. That might be one of the most brilliant chats you have ever written. And you actually paid to write that.
No, that is a good one.
I can't. I'm going to take that and reuse it. I'm going to make that a short. Okay? MK Ultra, thank you so much. You are awesome. And waiting on the Lord. God bless you. You say Romans 15:13. We love you. God bless you guys. You guys are great. David, how are you?
Wait a minute. I can't help this one. Her name is Barky Goldberg or Whoopi Goldberg? Sorry.
Oh, man. What a mess those ladies are.
Yeah, but they represent the mess. I mean, they're like the bag that hopes. No, I can't go that way. But I mean,
they are not the average American. Thank God.
Yeah,
they just aren't.
But they are the average celebrity. And look at the Oscars. Look at the Oscars. We haven't talked about that, but look at the Oscars.
Oh, what a mess.
A mess. And some of them were my people.
I mean, I deny my Judaism. I mean, did you see some of that?
Yeah, and
I like what an insane statement. If they had the Oscars, let's just say somehow they could just magically plant the Oscars in downtown. Let's just say Gaza City.
Oh,
or just say somewhere in Judea, Samaria. Just anywhere in Judea, Samaria. They wouldn't live.
Let me say something about my people, maybe, that maybe will connect to something that we're going to be talking about. But you don't need to be a great understanding of Bible or history to know that just like every family, and again, we're both connected to families, and every family has its like I tend to say, every family has its balagan.
No, you ain't
Every
kidding.
family has its mix-up. The Jewish people, down through the ages, have had those who said, oh, let's go back to Egypt, or have had those, oh, we don't want to be Jews, we want to be like all the other people,
Yep.
or have had Hellenistic Jews. I think we've kind of mentioned that a couple of times. We've had this down through our history.
Yep, it's true.
Okay, and they fall away on the side. And one of the reasons we're a small people, because we do have a lot of those who fall away on the side. And that guy that was on the Oscar, I don't even remember what his name was. I think Jonathan was his first name.
I don't know.
Okay, but his
Clown.
children are not going to be Jews.
Right.
And his grandchildren are not going to be Jews.
Right.
So if we talk about Jews who are the remnant of the remnant of the remnant 3 generations down the line, his children will not be part of that.
Well, guess what? Have fun during the tribulation.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all I got to say. Deny who God has made you. That's fine. Let's just see how well that serves you.
Yeah, but here's the thing, okay? He is standing on that stage on the back of creativity, identity,
Sure.
and
Sure.
capability that was given to him partly because of his Jewish background
That's right.
and his Jewish inheritance.
That's right.
So, I mean, Can we spit into the well we drink from? Yep.
Apparently they can.
well,
They don't
we-
spit in
we-
the well, bro. They poop in it.
Come on, we all spit in the well. Let's forget we're all sinners, and we've all done this. We've all done this to some extent. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of how do you say chesed?
I don't know about you. I'm telling you. Well, I actually do know about you. You haven't done this. You have not forsaken the God of your fathers to the point where you actually forsake who you are.
No, but I know
Even in your worst day, as a man who wasn't walking with God, you still had a very deep level of respect for what you knew to be the truth but hadn't understood yet.
Okay. And I agree. And there's a lot of people who'd argue a lot of things about that. But what I'm trying to say is people who have spit in the well. I mean, come on. I mean, we were getting manna from heaven and people were complaining about the taste. I mean, it's, well, what else? I mean, this is normal behavior for, and again, Jews represent that in anyone. I mean, how many people have raised godly, God-fearing children where you did everything you did right. You gave and you nurtured and you taught and you exampled everything that you believed is right. And the kids stand up and walk away into a completely different direction.
That's right.
And some of them pretty bad. I mean, we've all watched it happen. You say, why? You've got it all. It's all on a silver platter. Why? Because God has a plan. I mean, look at me. I mean, I was raised as a Christian and it took me 40 years to find my way back.
Yep. Well, fair enough. Well, how about we start with what Chucky Schumer did?
Do we need to give a little bit of a political background about Israel so we understand what that means?
Go for it. Let's do that. And then we're going to play this video. I want to say this, by the way. We're only going to play a few minutes of Netanyahu's reaction and a few minutes of what Chuck Schumer says, right? Not even a few minutes, maybe 45 seconds worth of what he says. But what's really important to know here, because I want you to be mindful of this, Friday, I'm releasing a video where I analyze his speech, Chuck Schumer's speech. What I think was remarkable about this speech, and this is going to be very interesting for you guys to hear this. What I think was remarkable about his speech was the fact that if you will listen to the speech and analyze it thoroughly, which I do on this video, it's roughly an hour and 40-minute video, hour and 30-minute video.
Oh, wow.
If you will analyze it and take it apart piece by piece, you have everything in that video that you need to defend Israel in any conversation or argument. And you also have anything that you need to defend the truth relating to Israel. And I'll tell you why. Because Chuck Schumer uses every common intelligent tactic that has been deployed against Israel's right to defend itself by actually creating a half-truth illusion that creates confusion in the hearts and the minds of people that listen to him. And I'll tell you what's really interesting. Chuck Schumer's speech actually gives a demonstration of very, very intelligent, insightful truth about Israel that he is absolutely right about. He also gives an example of complete ignorance about certain aspects of what's going on in Israel, specifically the government and the judiciary problem that a lot of people have been talking about. The other thing that he also does is he shows an absolutely unbelievably how about we just say vivid example of nefarious intent. It's all three of those things that are all tied up in what he says. And so if you can analyze his speech and really lay it out, you will learn how to effectively defend Israel and God's position concerning Israel and what's actually going on.
Let's do this.
So I'm releasing that video and I'm really excited about that video.
That one too.
It's coming on Friday. I just
so we're going to learn from Chuck Schumer how to defend Israel.
Put it this way. This video was so important to me that I actually edited it myself.
Okay.
And we, as of this week, will have 3 full-time editors working for us.
Nope.
You're going to be one of them, but you're doing some part-time stuff for us.
Okay.
So actually, technically, 3 full-time editors and 2 part-time guys.
And a weird one. I'm the part-time or the weird one?
No, you're one of the part-timers. Okay. You and Matt. But it's funny because this one meant a lot to me. So, so anyway, you were going to start about talking about Israel politics.
Okay,
this is something that was
let's start off.
important,
The first thing,
and
you
then
have
we'll
to
get into
understand.
this video.
You have to understand Israeli politics are different from American politics. I mean, there's about as different as a democratic system can. If you know anything about the British Parliament, we would be probably selected close to that. It goes like this. We vote for political parties. There's not two parties. It's a multi-party system. I think one of the elections we had 39 parties. They take the total amounts of votes, meaning if, 1.5 million people vote, you divide that by 120. 120 is the number of seats in our parliament, which means each block like that puts a representative in our parliament and our House of Representatives.
Right.
So that's how we vote. So we vote for a party, Likud party, which Benjamin Netanyahu runs, gets 30 seats. Another party gets 20 seats. Another party gets 10 seats. And for a government to be created, the party that has the most seats goes and makes agreements with smaller parties in order to create what we call a coalition. If you have a coalition that becomes the majority, meaning more than 61 seats with all the different pieces of the coalition, you're called on to create the government, and you can create policy and vote on it, and the other part, the opposition, cannot vote against it. Meaning the idea is that you have to have enough seats in parliament that whatever you decide to do will be supported by the people who support your coalition. It's called a coalition, which is why Benjamin Netanyahu has to make concessions to smaller political parties, okay, in order to stay in power. And the question is, which of the smaller parties is he going to use in order to bustle up or buttress up his coalition? Today, he is actually leaning on a very right-wing, very outspoken, nationalistic coalition, which our enemies are using as a way to attack us. On the other hand, in the past, he's used the ultra-religious, and there's a whole dynamic in that. So what I'm trying to say, it's a parliamentary system. It's not one commander-in-chief and everything goes. He has to stay in power, and he has to make concessions to the smaller parties that will allow the smaller parties to keep on and support him. So that's the backdrop. Understand how that works and why it works like that, and we can get into it now.
Yeah, and I think that this is really important because there's a lot about this that many people don't see or understand. Just the assembly of the government alone can be very, very confusing. I'm going to bring up a screenshot that I hope will benefit some people to kind of understand this. This was a screenshot that I used quite some time ago that actually depicts the assembly of one of the recent governments. This is not a reflection of the current government right now. Okay. This was about a year ago. But what this will do is this will effectively show you guys what we're actually talking about, because I think this is really, really important. Okay, so let me just do this because I want you guys to be able to see the assembly. Right, these are the different governments. Now, David, do not pay attention to the bar? Okay, the bars. Because the bars are going to be confusing, because this is not an accurate reflection of how the government looks like. This was the government that at the time I think was under the direction of Bennett. This is the government that Bennett had put together.
Well, you see what I don't see here.
Right.
I don't see Bibi here.
That's right.
I don't see. But
that's right. But this will show you the different parties that are represented.
Yeah, but you're not looking at the parties, you're looking at the coalition.
That's right, the coalition.
This is the coalition.
But this has a description of the parties that are members of the coalition, right? So some people will want to know who the Labor Party is, the different parties that we have here. It's very important for people to understand this.
Okay, so let's make another difference between us and you, and that is the definition of left and right in Israeli politics is different from the definition.
Please explain that.
From the different definition of left and right in American politics.
Please explain that. It's very, very important.
Here's the main. We kind of differ. I would say on 4 different axes as opposed to American politics that differ on 2. When you say left and right, you say conservative, you say liberal, and it's more or less you've got the scope laid out, you've got the line laid out, and you can only put yourself. And it's more the conservative part would be more religious, more leaning towards less government and less governmental control. Would be more say pro how do you say personal rights. I mean, gun laws and everything like that. And then the left is the other side of that. In Israel, left and right kind of differs on 4 different axes. One would be economy, a more social economy, a less social economy, governmental control on more, less governmental control in the economy itself. Another would be the religious. Because our religious elements are mixed into politics, so you have the religious element that are mixed into the politics, which means should the country be more religious? Should we not have public transportation on Saturday? Should the religious elements of the country be funded by the government? So you've got the religious aspect. Then you've got the security aspect. Okay, more what you would call hawkish or dovish. Okay, should you be very, very strong against and antagonizing against our enemies, and should we make concessions to the Palestinians or not make concessions to the Palestinians? So that would be another axis, and the last would probably be the Arab Israelis and the Arab minorities that are in Israel. So instead of a what you call a spectrum that has 2 sides in American politics, you've got a graph that has 4 different axes in Israeli politics. How religious are you? How nationalistic are you? How social are you? How supportive of Arabs are you? And all the parties are placed in the middle of that. That's why our politics are a lot more complicated.
Yeah, and let me do this because I think that what you're doing is you're doing what the typical, very well-aware politician might do in explaining something to Americans that isn't taking into account other variables. I think that you're doing exactly what my friend like David TaL might be doing, that type of thing. But let me get a little bit more in depth because there are some things that some people might not understand about some of these members of the coalition, okay? Let's just focus on what you see represented in the white bar that's right there, okay? These are the Ra'am, okay? If we talk about the Ra'am party, they would meet the exact same definition that David just gave you with the Yamina, okay? And I'll tell you why, okay? Because they do both believe in a governing document, but the governing document is completely different with both of them. The Hebrew or the Israeli or Jewish Yamina party believes in a governing document being the actual book of the law, okay?
Okay.
They are governed in essence by what we would look at as the Torah and all of the laws that came from there. They are very, very serious about that. These are the people that you will see, walking through downtown Jerusalem with the curls in their head and the locks and
what we call the Orthodox Jews.
The Orthodox Jews, right? So I just want people to understand that. Ra'am is also considered to be a religious right party. They are referred to as such. People conflate them all the time, but they're completely different because the ideal of Ra'am is Sharia law. Their whole governing mindset centers around Islamic law. They are they're very serious. Now there has been one seat in the Ra'am party that has not been around in a long time. I forgot his name. I'll have to remember. I'll go back and look. Who was it was dangerous. He called himself to be a Christian.
Oh, no, there's been a couple of Christians.
Yeah, but this one, and I keep forgetting his name, Habibi.
Azmi Bushara.
Yeah, thank you. It's Bushara. He was very, 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 very pro-biblical in the approach and the philosophy of his party. He thought he could do some changing. It wasn't the case. So,
but here's an interesting example. Both the very religious Jewish parties and the very religious Arab parties are anti-LGBTQ
100%.
They both agree on that.
100%.
Okay? On the other hand, they will probably not agree on almost anything else.
That's right. That's right. What's interesting with a party like the Likud party, for example, which many people would consider the Likud party leaning right.
Yep.
I would probably say they're more like what we would let me think, maybe a party in our country, maybe libertarian. You're maybe closer to the libertarian way of thinking in Likud. They are definitely closer to the right. They're definitely not Republican. They wouldn't represent what our establishment represents here in the Republican Party, right?
And by the way, one of the heads of the Likud party, Eli Cohen, who was he is, how do you say, outwardly gay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so this is the right wing or the right leaning side.
Yeah, and the Republicans have something like that. But you should also know that there are people within the Likud that are very different about how they define conservatism, okay? Like, for example, a man that I know personally and I actually interviewed, Israel Katz, is going to stand on a lot more conservative-leaning view of where his party should be going than maybe Bibi, right? Although they both get along very well and they represent a lot of what's in the establishment of that party. So this could get complicated.
Oh, it is
because
complicated.
You're not always guaranteed being a member of one party standing in the same coalition. And I'll give you an example. And the reason why I brought this up, I'll just give you an example of this. If the Likud party actually did what they were supposed to do or did what they traditionally do and represented the will of many of the people that identified with them, then Bennett would not have been the prime minister of Israel a few years ago.
You would not have seen a coalition
You
like
would not
this.
have seen a coalition like this. He compromised because he stood on his hatred for Bibi.
Okay, so let's bring this into where we're going with this, and I'm going to say this. Because there are people who either understand or partially understand the system that we're talking about right now, one of the ways to kick Israel in a sensitive area, I'm sorry about the equivalent.
Kick them in the gonads?
Is by turning what is happening in Israel all to be a result of political maneuvering.
That's right.
Okay? And say, and I'm saying, Israel, it's not Israel doing this. Netanyahu is doing this because he has to support a right-wing government.
That's right.
Okay? And I'm hearing this mostly from the enemies of Israel who are turning what is happening in Israel and what is happening in the decision Israel is making into parts of this political maneuvering.
Right. That's right.
And we talked about that last time, and Bibi is saying, listen, guys, it's not me being political. All of Israel wants those hostages released.
Right.
Don't say that we're willing to do more to release the hostages because we're a right-wing government. I mean, you see, and I think I'm going to hear Schumer connect a little bit of that. He's going to say right things, but he's going to turn
That's right.
what's going on or his opinion, into a political issue without addressing the underlying idea that's behind it.
Yes, and a lot of it is because they're taking things out of context. Like, for example, one of the things that Schumer will do is he'll attack Gantz, okay? And there's a reason why he's attacking him, right? He is using him as an example of what he calls a right-wing extremist who capitulates to the ideals of the religious group. But if you know anything about Israeli politics and you can identify, you understand, you know a little bit about what's going on over there, you'll understand that could be nothing could be further from the truth.
Gantz is not right.
No, there's a security state that exists, that there's a lot to play there that a lot of people don't completely understand. And also the other thing that we should talk about, which I think is really important because it's very missed, is the fact that the United States of America is seeking to impose upon Israel the same judicial philosophy and ideal that they want to adapt on the left into the state of Israel. And it gets a lot more complicated with Israel because you would be a liar and a deceiver or just incredibly ignorant if you draw a parallel between the two nations, because there can't be you can't draw a parallel between the two nations. Let me give you an example of this, okay? Right now, there's a movement by the left to remove Sotomayor, who's one of our Supreme Court justices. She's left-leaning. She's a very liberal judge. But they're angry with her. And the reason why they're angry with her is because she sided with the majority on the Trump case, which, by the way, was a unanimous verdict. Okay? So everybody who was left in the Supreme Court actually ruled and said that Colorado does not have the right, based on the 14th Amendment, specifically in Section 3, to make the decision that he cannot be on the ballot, right? That's a responsibility that has the purview of the legislator. So now what they're doing is they're trying to call for her to retire now so that they can put in a left-leaning activist judge that will do whatever they want them to do. By the way, I think I know who they want them to, who they want to be put in there.
I have no idea.
I think they want to put Kamala Harris in there because they want to get rid.
As a judge?
Yeah. Well, she's an attorney. It's a very powerful position, and she'll do whatever they tell her what to do.
We know how she got her position.
Oh, I know. Listen, I know.
We know that.
She will do what the left wants her to do.
Yeah, but I mean, really, she wiggles her head, and you hear the two IQs
bro.
hitting each other.
I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you. I think that's what they want to do. But with that said, let me just simply say this, okay? In the mind of the leftists, if I can get a hold of the judicial class and I can control what the judicial class does, then I have the power to control the country. Forget the president. Who cares about the president? If I can override with the judicial, whatever the president does or anybody else, then I'm in a good place. Well, unlike the United States of America, Israel doesn't have the same type of governing document.
Exactly.
Okay? So the problem
we don't have a declaration. We don't have a
constitution.
Constitution the way
you have something that's very similar to a Declaration of Independence, but that's a whole other. That's a whole other. By the way, you should really look into the declarations made by early Israeli leaders, especially Ben Gurion. Some of this stuff is so incredibly powerful. I mean, you should really look at this stuff. But let me just say this: what's different here is that when the Knesset. So the obligation to create a law in Israel is placed upon the coalition government. They, in essence, drive the laws. Now, it's more complicated than that because the way that happens is a very nuanced process, right? Okay, but in essence, they're the influencers that put all of this together. Like the executive branch, Netanyahu's government has the responsibility of enforcing the laws that are already in place. But unlike the executive branch, they are not held independent to be able, through what would be the equivalent of an executive order, to make changes, because although within the purview of the Israeli law system traditions, they can do that, the judicial branch or the judicial
We'll hold them
accountable. We'll not let them do that. The debate is this. The debate is when the Jewish people vote in the coalition that in essence forms, the parties that form the coalition, how much of a voice do they have in what they want happening in the country? This is where the major debate is happening. What America wants to do, the leftist side of America, is America wants it to be a judicially controlled state. Nobody in Israel wants that.
No.
Not a single person. They want checks and balances.
Well, let me add on one more layer to this, and I'm going to see if I can kind of tie it to something that I think is important. One of the reasons that Hamas attacked Israel, went and attacked Israel, is it believed Israel was weak because of this political controversy.
Yes.
Among other things, the judicial controversy that
100%.
was going on in Israel. And they mistakenly thought that this will create an inability to to decide and act on decisions on the part of the Israeli government. I can't help but make the illustration. I don't know what was happening politically in the United States on the eve of Pearl Harbor. but there might have been a huge rift between the politics on the left and the politics on the right. But the minute Pearl Harbor happened, all of those issues became secondary,
Yeah.
if not less.
Same thing with 9/11.
Okay, the minute what happened in Israel became, all of these issues that we're talking about, the Israeli politics, became secondary, and the will of the people is, and let me make this very clear, the will of the people is to finish off Hamas. It's not the will of Benjamin Netanyahu to finish off Hamas. It's not the will of the right-wing government to fill off Hamas. Every Israeli in line, they want Hamas to be gone. And I'm even going to say more. The will of the American people is for Hamas to be gone.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We know that we have polls that are verified. 82% of the American people agree with this.
So if you're dragging the politics and the coalition system of Israel into this debate, you're trying to go against the will of the majority.
100%. And I want to add to what you just said, because it's very correct, right? I had a conversation with Bibi's brother, as you know, okay, Ido. Smart man. I really admire the genius of this guy. I think he's just a super, super smart guy, right? Just give you an idea how smart he is. He got his medical degree and he's practicing as a doctor, but it wasn't intellectually stimulating enough for him, which is why he became a playwright, okay? just to let you know, and he still practices as a doctor, okay? So I tell him this, and he says, James, you're right. He's 100%. I say, look, the reason why we don't see those activists in Israel right now, the judicial activists, isn't because all the Jews set aside their differences and they're now serving in the IF and going and fighting. That's part of it. Guaranteed there's some part of that.
Yeah.
But the bigger issue is the people that were protesting, an overwhelming amount of people that were protesting in Israel were not Israeli citizens. And when it all broke out, they all took off. And I fully believe that. They were planted. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. What I'm saying is an overwhelming majority of the people that were doing these big demonstrations in Tel Aviv and outside of Jerusalem, they did not have the same type of vested interest in the country that you do.
I mean, I can't do this without. I mean, I was there. I've seen
debate
some of
me.
them.
Listen.
I've seen some of them, and I know a lot of them. And okay, I'm not sure. It was an Israeli demonstration. I'm going to say it was the less religious. It was the less ideological motivated. But yes, I don't think it was from the outside.
Oh my goodness.
There was an issue.
I'll have to show you some things.
I'll
have to show you.
We'll have to debate that.
Yeah.
But let's go back
because there are some things that me and him talked about that were off the record that I can't. But I'll talk to you about that later. But there was a lot of that.
But let's go back to this.
Yeah.
We are now thinking. Okay, I mean, it's like the country. Israel's at war. Israel's still bleeding. People don't realize. I mean, and we're having discussions, and we're trying to put a tourniquet on. We're kind of do emergency medicine, and then somebody comes and starts talking about, oh, wait a minute, you got your degree from here, and you got your. I mean, it's all about the politics of the medicine, and it's not about the medicine. And I'm saying, if you don't really realize that we're still in this, how do you say, first? What do you call it? First. The people who come first, how do you say, first, emergency services, first responders, okay?
Oh, yeah.
We're still in the first responder kind of stage of this, and everybody's already talking about, okay, how do we put this stuff back into the truck? And I think that's part of the difference that we're dealing with. But let's mix in my politics to yours, because I think part of what Schumer said is because he realizes that this war is going to lose the elections for Biden.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot. I think that there's a lot that motivates that. But I actually take it a step further. I think it's more nefarious than that.
Okay.
I actually believe that he is making a very concerted effort to bring in a very leftist philosophy into the governing role of Israel, so that his ability to change a lot of what he wants to change within his own political class here in the United States of America will be expanded. By the way, this is a growing philosophy amongst leftists right now in our country, right? And that is bring in a different foreign policy that will drive a more beneficial outcome for our power string. Okay, can I give you an example of this? The open borders. No one understands why the open borders are going on. Man, we just, why are we opening up our borders? Well, think about it, okay? Around the same time that the open borders became a massive issue and we were breaking records in terms of illegal aliens coming into the country, they changed the law. And what they changed in the law is that in the census, when you take your counts, you are not allowed to ask about citizenship. Now, why is that a big deal? It's a big deal because when I count the numbers of people that are in the country, I use those numbers to be able to determine how many representatives in the House of Representatives represent me.
Okay.
So the reason why they're flooding all of the more liberally or leftist-leaning states with illegals is because if they can increase the population number by 1 million here and 1 million there and 1 million here and 1 million there, instead of having 2 seats in the House, they'll now have 4 or 5 or 6. Now, some people say, well, James, that still doesn't affect what might happen in a republic kind of a situation, but it does. Because the more seats you have in the House of Representatives, the other thing that ties with that are the amount of delegates that you have that vote in the republic infrastructure that brings in whoever is going to serve us at the federal level, like the office of the presidency. So you don't have to have illegals voting in order to affect an outcome. You just need to have them there. And that's why they've been doing these special census numbers, because they know that as those numbers increase, they can not only gain more members in the House, more seats representing the population, but they also can start looking at restructuring and rezoning. And if they can start doing that, or the better term, the more politically correct term, is redistricting. And if they can start redistricting, then they can radically change how the laws are passed.
I actually had something less sophisticated on my mind. And my basic understanding, and again, I'm looking at American politics from 2 sides. And I know it sounds weird to say it like this, but I see the divide between the left and the right is a more mature, immature divide. It's a more responsible adult teenager divide.
Oh, no, I disagree with that, but I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay,
I understand.
and let me see if I can see where I'm going, because what I'm seeing from my side, okay, is that the younger generations of America have this fad phase. They go through fads. One of the fads was the Me Too movement. It became a fad, and then it got out of control, but it became a fad. One of the fads was the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. One of the fads was the climate. Okay. Now, all of these might have some truth to them, but they became a flag that people carry.
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry to say, one of the fads is Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, she's
okay.
A Satan
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing. There's these fads, and the Democratic side of the political divide is more based on the people who have these fads, the younger people. So if you wanted to be in power in the Democratic circles 3 years ago, you had to bow the knee before the black community and say, I'm sorry for what we did. If you wanted to be in power 5 years ago, you had to say, me too, I understand me too, I accept everything, me too. Okay, there's this fad. Now, the fad right now is hating Israel.
Yeah. So
and do you understand? So they have to plug into this fad, and question is, how long is it going to last, and what's going to happen?
Yeah. So let me take it a step further, because we're not talking about a fad here. What we're actually talking about is we're talking about an ends to a mean, or a mean to an end. That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So the leftists that sit in government right now, and I want to make this very clear in the United States of America, you will look at them as children who are in a fad stage, who never really got out of high school, if you don't take into account the Marxist mechanism that's driving them. So right now, these people are literally, they're not economic Marxists, they're cultural Marxists, okay? They've been programmed that way in their schools.
Okay.
They've been taught this way for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So in their Marxist ideals, what they actually believe is they believe that they have to rally around a revolution of some sorts. And the revolution over the last 15 years, 10 to 15 years, and it's been growing dramatically, has been centered around race. That's really, in essence, what it comes to.
Or gender.
Or gender, but in essence, it is a function of identifying a people group who are oppressed. So you might stop and go, well, James, we're the most oppressed people group in the world as Jews. Yes, but you are not, as the Jews, a good optical. You don't make good victims. You're not optically, you don't look like you're an oppressed group, because you work around that oppression and you pretty much make gold anything you touch. So and this is a story of Jews.
Yep.
Look, the story of Jews is that you go somewhere, you become practical slaves of where you are, you're oppressed in where you are, and all you do is you make the place better. And finally you grow, even though you're oppressed and you're put in a slave position, and then you're kicked out. And then you go somewhere else and you make the country good. And you become slaves in essence. And what happens is you make it beautiful and then you get kicked out. Look at what happened in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to Egypt and you look at the pyramids and you look at all those ancient structures, I promise you the Jews made those. I promise you they did. I promise you. Okay? We know that from the scriptures. We do. Okay? So listen, there's a lot that we can argue this way, right? This happens. So if the Jews are being oppressed and that oppression looked really good for a camera story or for an emotional string, then I promise you the left would be behind it. But they're not. The Palestinian population is a much better picture for them to draw. And this is how I know why, right? Because first of all, me and you talked about this.
Yeah.
We sat down in that mall outside the Dead Sea at that McDonald's in that mall, and we talked about what we knew was coming.
Yeah.
We knew that the media was going to do this. We saw it. We saw the writings on the wall. How do we combat it? We saw all that, right? Me and you didn't have near the kind of influence that we have now. Kind of wish we did back then. I think we could have made a bigger difference. But here's the problem, and this is the bigger issue, right? So now you're worried about innocent Arab civilians, innocent Palestinians being killed. Okay, 30,000 Palestinians is what they're saying have been killed since October the 7th. Okay, in a day and a half, King Hussein in Jordan killed almost 40,000 Palestinians. Killed. And then kicked out of his country almost 200,000.
Yeah. Black September.
In a day and a half. And you're not going to look at that? No, you're not, because the optics of it. You have millions in the last even few years of Armenians being killed. In Azerbaijan, in Turkey, and all that. No one's talking about that.
What about Yemenis?
The Yemenis. How about what's going on in what they're calling a civil war?
Yeah.
It's a real
genocide.
bloodbath. It's a real bloodbath.
It's a real genocide.
You look at what's going. Even Saudi Arabia recognizes the problem.
Okay, but again, all right, we're good boogeymen. We're not good victims.
So that's the issue. The left is using this to drive their cultural Marxist ideals. And Satan lives there. This is Satan's creation. And of course he's going to use the Jews as, forgive me for saying this, it sounds terrible, right? As fod for the fire, because of the fact that he hates Jews.
Okay, so let's go back to your Democratic Party. That in order,
not my Democratic Party,
yeah.
bro.
I mean, I live here too now.
Yeah.
By the way,
they're not our party.
Did I tell you that I'm official now?
I know, I saw, bro. It's so great. It's great.
I'm an official I'm an official legal alien now. I passed my driving test yesterday. I know how to drive in California.
That's awesome. That's
yeah,
good.
But yeah, no, I'm saying that's another stage.
You can drive in downtown Jerusalem, bro. You can drive anywhere.
Yeah, well, and I'm saying it's another stage of God saying this is where you're being called. And I think that's a whole different conversation. But what I'm trying to say is that we don't make good bad guys.
No.
Okay? I mean, we're successful. I mean, again, if you're against success, the Jews are the bad guys. If you're against survival, the Jews are the bad guys. If you're against creativity and people who kind of pull themselves up from the bootstraps, the Jews can be the
If you hate
boogeyman.
freedom, then you hate Jews.
But here's what I'm saying. I mean, anywhere else, we would be the heroes. Okay? The fact that we are being used as the boogeyman in this situation means that there's something else going on. There's
100%.
a God hatred going on here.
100%.
And your Democratic Party is plugging into that God hatred.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe that's more than anything. Ed Schumer has been a supporter of Israel, and you can hear that he knows the real dynamic.
Yep.
He understands the truth. But he is plugging into God hatred in order to push forward the Democratic Party agenda. And that, I think, has me more worried than anything else. That's like Nancy Pelosi kneeling down before the blacks, meaning that she was plugging into that agenda in order to stay in power.
Yep.
And it turns out that the Democrats are understanding that in order to stay in power, they're going to have to plug into hatred of God through hatred of the Jewish people.
100%.
That, I think, is more scary than the actual event.
I would agree because what you're talking about is you're talking about a group of cultural Marxists that know you have to absolve yourself and your society of God in order to be successful in wanting to overrule a totalitarian power. That's exactly what this is. So let me give you some context on this. This is what Chucky Schumer said. By the way, the beginning of Chuck Schumer's speech, he even goes far as to talk about the definition of his Hebrew name, Schumer, and what he thinks it means, right? Which was also very, very funny because he said the word Schumer means guardian, and
it means well, I mean, all of us know that the German/Yiddish name Schumacher. You know what Schumacher means?
Yeah.
It means maker of shoes.
Yep.
So what's a Schumer?
Yeah.
Is a shoe.
Yeah. So
okay.
He tried to explain to people that it means he's a guardian. And I just pulled my hair out of my head going, and I explained this to people. I actually explained what the actual origin
he's
of the
Ed
meaning
Bundy.
of the name. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I choked up your pastor just now.
Okay. Well, you guys would have to understand what made me laugh here. Okay. So I'm going to play this. Oops, that's the wrong screen. Oh, I got to fix something here. Hold on one second. We're in double screen
It's
here.
all about the buttons.
There it is. Sorry. We're live. This is part of live TV, right?
Yeah, we just now got triggered.
Yeah. So, real quickly before we do this, let me just thank a couple of super chats that came in. It says, "My family and I stand with Israel. God stands with Israel. I stand with God forever." Thank you, C. Blessed. You're awesome. Ray Goldsboro, thank you so much for your generosity. You say, "Pastor James, thanks for all the information and your knowledge on eschatology. God bless your ministry." Thank you so much for your kind words.
Yeah.
Let's watch this.
Okay.
Because this is really interesting, and this is a Fox interview. Netanyahu gets questioned about what the shoemaker said. I'm sorry.
You like that one.
You got me. That was just awesome. All right. Let's get into this. This should be very interesting to you. This is the tail end of something Netanyahu just said, and then a new line of questioning is going to come in.
It because it's not a personal thing. I'm leading the policy that most Israelis think is essential for our survival and our future.
Let's talk about that criticism, Mr. Prime Minister. Here's Chuck Schumer slamming you on the Senate floor on Thursday.
A new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel. People on all sides of this war are turning away from a two-state solution, including Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. I believe in his heart he has his highest priority is the security of Israel. However, I also believe Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way.
Mr. Prime Minister, he says you've got to go. Joe Biden says he liked the speech and also said your policies are hurting Israel more than helping Israel. Your response to Chuck Schumer and the president?
I think Schumer's statements are wholly inappropriate. I think we're not a banana republic. The people of Israel will choose when they'll have elections, who they elect, and it's not something that will be foisted upon us. That, you know, it's wrong to try to replace the elected leaders of a sister democracy and a staunch American ally at any time, but especially during the time of war. Just imagine that after 9/11, and when you're in the midst of fighting Al-Qaeda and winning, people will say, oh, well, the right thing, some Israeli would say, oh, the right thing to do is now to have new elections in America or have President Bush resign. It's inappropriate, shouldn't have been said, it's wrong. As far as my considerations, they're not for my personal survival, they are for the survival of the Jewish state, and that requires pursuing the war. It's something that my government enjoys the support of the overwhelming majority of Israelis. And let me tell you something, not only the majority of Israelis, but the majority of the American people. 82% support Israel consistently over the 5 months of the war against Hamas and not Hamas. So, you know, I don't know why Senator Schumer made those statements. I think the only thing that we should be focused on is changing the regime in Gaza, bringing down the terrorist regime of Hamas and not the duly elected government of Israel. That's the right policy.
Well, as you know, Donald Trump.
So that is a very well put statement that he gives. Your reaction?
No, he's totally right. And here's the thing. I'm not a great Bibi lover, but I still will stand behind every word that he just now said. Yeah. And again, this is what we talked about. Don't make it a political issue about Bibi's government, okay? Understand that all the Israelis, down to the last of us, feel that our women and children are still in Gaza being held as hostage and feel that our country is under existential threat. And for somebody to stand here on the other side of the ocean and say, okay, we think that you are making the wrong decisions. And it just, there's something aggravating in people who have no, I'm going to say, for lack of a better word, no actual skin in the game, okay, making this kind of statement based on their political attribution, their political aspirations, and kind of putting it on us. And here's part of my problem. This is what we should be worried. This is what we should be worried about, is the fact that a political entity in the United States today, in order to stay in political power, has to bow the knee before hatred of Israel. That has me worried as much as anything else.
Yeah, and I want you to see this because this is another just to show you how these leftist Marxist regimes that are on the left are saying things. This is Nancy Pelosi now who responds concerning this issue. And look at how, well, I'm not going to I'll let you respond to it. But this is interesting. So let's watch this. The context here is staggering. Hold on, watch this here.
Now is former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. First, I just want to ask what your response is to what you just heard from the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister's presentation proved the necessity of Chuck Schumer's speech. Chuck Schumer's speech was an act of courage, an act of love for Israel. And I wish the Prime Minister would read the whole speech.
Please don't love us that way, please.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, here we go.
Because he speaks with great vehemence about the need to defeat Hamas. He is concerned about the weakness of the Palestinian Authority and the very, very dangerous attitude of the right-wing Israeli government.
What's dangerous about it?
Well, what's dangerous about it is, to her, is that they, in essence, are a promulgator of freedom. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If the Israeli government does what it's supposed to do in this current moment, then Nancy Pelosi and all of her people lose the leverage that they have to be able to affect an emotional response in people to get what they want. That's what this is all about. Watch what she continues to say, bro. I'll rewind it for a little bit of context. This is enough to make anybody mad. Here we go.
Very, very dangerous attitude of the right-wing Israeli government. The issue of food in Gaza is a very big one, and either the Prime Minister Netanyahu is unaware or ill-informed, but the head of the world's central kitchen, Jose Andres, who's there, as you mentioned, Cindy McCain, the World Food Program, and any other of these entities that are there to feed the people will tell you there is starvation, there is famine.
She's talking about UNRWA, by the way.
And here's
that's
the
what she's
thing.
talking about,
You
which
and
are a
I
bunch of
both seen the
terrorists.
videos. We've seen the videos of the market in Rafah.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Again, the truth is not what is important. The reality on the ground is not what's important. It's her portraying what she believes is the local fad.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, it's starvation. It's humanitarian.
Yep. Continue to watch this.
There is dehydration because Israel has not allowed the food and the humanitarian assistance to go right in. So again, it's a fact that so many people are dying.
By the way, I just have to say this because you know this better than anybody. There is a whole section of the IDF, a literal whole section of the IDF whose job is to not only mitigate civilian casualties, their job is also to provide any possible infrastructure necessary to aid and help innocent civilians. There's a whole section of the IDF that does this, who've actually given their lives.
And some of them have died, yes. Some of them
I want people to know that.
But again, she can say this, and the fact that she says it's a fact means, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi here?
Bro, and I would bet you that if we took Nancy Pelosi and we sat her in this seat right now and she talked with us about the infrastructure of the Israeli government, she would not know her head from her nasty rear.
So here's the thing. I need to look
She
at
knows
this.
nothing about this.
I need to look at this and say, why is she saying this?
It's this. We keep talking about it. It's the same reason why Chucky Schumer is saying what he's saying.
And here's the thing. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make this clear, okay? If the Democratic Party wants to stay in power and they need to use this lying, deceiving, anti-Israel rhetoric because they believe that's the way they plug into their power base, to their electorate, then you know who you need to vote for.
100%. 100%. But listen to what she continues to say.
Dying from lack of food. It's really a very sad situation. Now, from the standpoint of Chuck Schumer, he is, as you had mentioned, the leading Jewish elected official in our country. In history.
By the way, it is true. She is the highest. Chuck Schumer is the highest-ranking Jewish official in American politics. There's no one that's ever been higher ranking.
But that doesn't make him.
It doesn't mean anything.
Right?
It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
This is identity politics. This is them basically saying that he has moral authority to speak on something because of an immutable characteristic. It doesn't mean jack. One of the highest ranking Israeli diplomatic officials in this country is not a Jew. He's Druze.
Yeah, but again, what I'm trying to say is this. We're doing politics according to emotions, okay? And here's the thing. If a Jew says something, that makes it more right because he's a Jew. If,
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's their thinking.
And that's the mentality. But that is part of this, like you said, identity politics. Okay? How can a man have an opinion about anything that has to do with women? He's not a man. How can a man have an opinion about abortion if he's not a woman? I mean, how can somebody who's not black have an opinion about anything that has to do with blacks? So your opinion is designated by who you are and not about what your opinion is. Now, you and I both know how unbiblical, ungodly that is.
Oh, yeah. Come on, bro. We all know that. And then not to mention the fact that, even in my circles where people from Egypt, family members, relatives, They're all passing back and forth. I should show you some of these videos, bro, of these Egyptian truckers that won't. They're saying
not
in
going
Arabic,
in.
"I'm never going back.
No.
Look at how they destroyed my truck. Look at what they did." This is not the IDF doing it, by the way.
No. But again, the truth doesn't matter. The emotion matters. She's going to say, "Oh, they're dying of fast." Okay. Now again, if that's true, if Hamas is the leader, okay, and they are dying of famine, why don't you just hold up the white flag and say we're done? And
Or why don't you just take the
Why don't you just-
$14 billion that you have in Qatar that's spread
Why don't
across
you-
3 of your families and give it to them?
okay, this war would be over if Hamas actually hands back the hostages and say we're done.
Yeah. How about this? This war wouldn't even be a war. It had not done what they did on October 7th.
And again, she's accepting what they did on October 7th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. They're calling it a Peter Pan kind of a admirable. I'm telling you, bro, it's ridiculous. But
Resistance.
Robin Hood, not Peter Pan. Robin Hood. I get them all confused.
In history, he loves Israel, as we do. We support Israel. And the fact that he made this statement should be listened to, because Israel's reputation is at risk because of what is happening in Gaza. Now, we all agree, many of us, Hamas is a terrorist organization. They should be defeated. But what happens next? We've called for a two-state solution. In the Democratic Party, I was chair of the Platform Committee in 1992, where we called for a two-state solution. Netanyahu has been against that.
No.
But what
Wait a
is
minute.
the solution?
Hold on.
She's lying.
Hold on. Who's been against the two-state solution?
She's
Bring
lying.
up Hamas and say, do you want a two-state solution? What are they going to say?
I'll show you the video.
Yeah, we've seen the video.
I'll show you the video again. It's just brutal. He says we have no interest in a two-state solution. Matter of fact, in the Chucky Schumer video that I do on Friday, I actually aired that video.
They don't want a two-state
Madam
solution.
Speaker, I want
Is
to
the
ask
solution
about
what the right-wingers are saying, that they just take over Gaza?
I want to ask about what you just heard the Prime Minister say, or maybe the better way to say it is what he would not say. He wouldn't commit to new elections. He claims that the Israeli people don't want that.
So I just want you to know, this is how these news media people, this is why they're not trusted, because they're a bunch of nonsense flippin' liars. That is not, we just heard Netanyahu speak. Netanyahu did not say that. He didn't say, I refuse to. He's saying, I am a duly elected official in a country that is not a banana republic. We'll vote when it's time to vote.
Yep.
We have all these things that regulate what we do in our country. We're not going to just change something because we're a banana republic. It's not him being a dictator that's refusing to step down. Stupid. I'm sorry, it makes me mad.
Again, she's pushing the emotional button. Okay. Oh, the planet is warming up. We need to do things to change the planet. I mean, what does it matter if it is or if it isn't? I am plugging in to the fad, the teenager fad, that, this is what we need to deal with.
Yeah, but these people are a whole lot more sophisticated than teenagers following a fad.
No.
They're
the
nefarious.
Teenagers are following the fad.
Yep.
They are using.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
And
they're brainwashing these kids, sure.
Okay, another example, all right? In the Arab world, anybody knows that in order to move the Arab world in any way, you need to use religion. Okay? So people who have no care about religion, okay, will actually use religious quotes or
sure.
will use. Okay. By the way, don't get me wrong. Christianity did that in the past. The Pope, okay, was a political entity that used love of Jesus Christ as a way to achieve his political goals. She's doing the same thing.
Oh, it's terrible. The funny thing about that is she keeps talking about Gaza, the Palestinians. They would never let her open her mouth in their society.
Nancy, here's my question. What about the Israelis? Who's talking about Israel?
I'm
Who's
telling
talking
you.
about the Israelis? When they talk about Israel, they talk about Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. I mean, who talks about, the people on the street? Who talks about, Zella Goldberg, who lives in Modine? That's my mom.
Yeah.
Okay. Who talks about what she is afraid of and what she wants
They're not going
about
to.
her security and her well-being and her safety? Who talks about
And
that?
they're not going to talk about how all of these women were repeatedly raped again and again and again and again, and how these children were exploited, and how these babies are dead, and the nonsense that they did, the purebred wickedness. They're not going to talk about any of that stuff. Of course they're not.
Which leaves me, my people, my government, my army to take the security and the well-being of my mom under our responsibility.
You have to.
Exactly.
Look at what she continues to say.
You believe, I know you said that we should read and listen to what Senator Schumer said. Are you also saying that you support the notion of new elections in Israel as the war winds down, as Senator Schumer said?
The only thing I would disagree with what you said is I don't think it's a notion. I think it's a very serious proposal that
Do you agree
the
with it?
people of Israel be able to speak. Now, it's up to them to decide that.
Thank you.
It's curious to me to see Netanyahu talk the way he does when he tried to interfere in American elections, but that's another subject. When he came to the Congress, criticized the President of the United States.
He didn't try to interfere in American elections. What a stupid... That's the problem, is she's not stupid.
No,
she
not.
knows what she's doing.
She's pressing the buttons.
She knows exactly what she's
triggering
doing.
those who are waiting to be triggered. Okay.
Yeah, she's talking about the speech that Netanyahu gave many years ago during the time of Purim, if you remember. This was actually this may have been when the last skirmish during right after Ramadan that carried into 2000. Maybe it was 2014.
That far back?
Maybe it was that far back. Maybe that was the one. But no, I know what she's talking about. Sorry. No. She's talking about the UN. She's talking about his UN address. Is what she's talking about. That guaranteed. That's what she's talking about.
States barged into our country, into our elections. But again, let's put that aside and let's just say, as we go forward, what is wrong with advocating for elections in a democracy? And you mentioned the polls. You see that thousands and thousands of people are in the streets, even last night in Israel. But again, it's a democracy, and people have.
Yeah. She's saying thousands and thousands and thousands of people are in the street in Israel.
No, she is right, but they're about the hostages.
Yeah, bro, we know this. This is not the... This is... Matter of fact, a whole bunch of those people are saying, go into Rafah and get them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, there are a lot of people in Israel who said, stop everything and get the hostages out. There are. I'm not saying. And again, this is her exploiting the pain of the families of people who have hostages. Now, here's the thing. I mean, if your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter was in Gaza, what would you say? And again, I think we've talked about this. This is the discussion that's going on in Israel.
I tell you what I would say. I would say do whatever it takes to bring them back. And the reality of it is...
Some do say that.
The reality of it is... Hamas is never, ever going to act on goodwill with my mother, brother, father, sister, whatever. So you know what? Every day that goes by that they're over there is more of a dangerous day. Get over there and wipe them out. Get what we need to get.
So what she is she's plugging in to that dynamic over there on that side, which is problematic and
hugely problematic.
Okay, and again, I cannot judge a mother, a father, a brother, a sister.
Of course not.
I mean, they, at least in my society, they have the right to say what they want.
Of course.
I mean, okay, that doesn't change the responsibility of the leadership to say what he wants. You don't come to a mourning family member and start, how do you say, arguing with them about what they think. There's
100%,
no way.
100%.
But that doesn't mean that you have to make decisions. Okay, let's say for the mourning family, you have to make decisions based on what is right, not on everybody's opinion.
I would agree.
And a person who has a family member in Gaza, their opinion is weighed in a different way.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, bro.
But here she is using it, and again, I mean, Mrs. Pelosi, do me a favor, leave us alone.
Yeah, exactly. Get lost. Go and put more glue in your teeth. because we can hear your teeth chattering.
Have different views and they express them, and that's a beautiful thing. But for him to say, what does that say if he won't even say that as the war winds down, the people of Israel should speak? That's all Chuck was saying. But read the speech, because it condemns Hamas. It criticizes Abbas and the Palestinian Authority for not being good partners for peace. Read the speech. The right wing, I mean, sad to say when you listen to Netanyahu, I thought it was a very weak presentation and again, argued for Chuck Schumer's speech. But nonetheless, he's probably the most moderate person in that coalition. And it's really a sad state of affairs. Let me just, if I just...
He's the right-wing leader, and now he's the most moderate person in the coalition?
No, don't get me wrong. We have some wackos in our coalition.
We know that, bro.
But again,
it's not the issue. The wackos are not controlling the decisions.
Exactly. That has nothing to do with the fact that if you... Okay, so let's say this. If Nancy Pelosi had, or Chuck Schumer, or Joe Biden, had the do the election button in their hand, and they say, if I press this button, Israel goes to elections, okay? The Hamas terrorist who's holding an AK-47 to the head of the baby in Gaza, and he sees that the United States of America is pushing Israel into elections, okay, because of what I've done. I've kidnapped these children. They're in my basement. And now I'm putting a situation where the United States of America is going to overthrow the Israeli government. Do you understand what he is doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, you know what he's going to say as a result of listening to this nice lady telling us what needs to be done? Okay, she's saying, yes, what you did is terrible. What you did is horrific, but what you did is going to be the reason for me to overthrow the Israeli government. So let's do this. And he's going to sit there with the head of the baby on the sights of the AK-47 and say, Allahu Akbar, because she's doing what he couldn't do.
It's 100% correct. It's 100% correct. It's 100% correct. And look, the right wing, what you would call like the cuckoos, not the right wing. I don't want to associate cuckoo with right wing. That's just crazy, right? But the cuckoos that have been in this coalition have always been in any coalition that has existed in the last 40 years in Israel. As a matter of fact, every 4 years or so, or 5 years, 2 years, it just depends on how the government forms or breaks, I get an email frantic from somebody telling me that Israel is going to make it illegal to preach the gospel in Israel. And every single time I tell them the same thing. It's the same crazy fanatics that say the same thing. And guess what? They never do it. They never do it.
What the Democrats are doing is they are rewarding terrorism.
Yes.
And
incentivizing it even.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Why doesn't somebody else see this? I mean, here, classic example, okay? If as a result of this attack, a two-state solution comes out, meaning the Palestinians say, oh, as a result of this, we get a state, we get a country. The world is going to push Israel into something that Israel has not agreed to do because we don't want to agree to an agreement, okay? Let's say, by the way, they don't want a two-state solution, but let's say...
No, they don't.
Let's say, hypothetically, okay, Gaza, Hamas comes over the border, slaughters 1,400 Israelis, takes 250 prisoners, okay? Fights a battle where it puts its civilian population on the ground on top and hides underneath, saying, okay, now come bomb us, okay? And at the end of this, you say, okay, here's a country. Here's a reward for what you did.
Yeah, come on.
Now, tell me, what would that mean to the rest of the world?
Oh, it would just send... It would send chaos through the world.
What kind of world government or what kind of United States does she think? Would this make a better United States for the people of America?
Heck no.
So what's going on here?
It's demonic. I mean, that's the only way of putting it. Look what she goes on to say.
I may say this. I love Israel. I love the Israeli people.
No, you don't, liar.
And this is how we think of them, about shared values. I remember being there as a speaker on one visit to Hadassah Hospital, and they told me they had just dealt with a clash between Palestinians and Israelis, and they treated them both the same.
Okay,
and they
stop,
said we
stop.
didn't.
No, not a clash. It's not a clash.
It was an
It
attack,
is
a
terror.
concerted attack, terrorist attacks.
I mean, how do you? Okay,
Come on, bro. Me and you were together. Literally, we were just in Ben Yehuda. We were just there. And we left, and we went further south, and maybe a day after there was the bombing.
no. The fact that you turn it into a clash, it's like turning.
And that's a
into,
clash?
Let's take it turning into a gang killing in downtown L.A., where a gang walks into a pizza parlor and slaughters 12 people. Okay, saying it is a clash between different neighbors.
It's a skirmish.
And then rightfully, when the doctor treats the gang member in the same ER as he treats the victim, we uphold that. We uphold that. We celebrate that. But that doesn't mean that one is a murderer and one is a victim.
That's right.
And when you do that, you're saying, "Oh, wonderful. There's a clash," and you're willing to put aside your hatred. No, we're willing to put aside our hatred, but that doesn't change the perpetrator.
Yeah.
A clash.
It's ridiculous. But listen, there's more. She's the
Okay.
gift that keeps on giving.
Treat the Palestinian differently because they were Palestinian. We treated them the same because we are Jewish. The values have been so clear. Now, we have to stop Hamas. They're a terrorist organization.
Okay.
What they did on October 7th was barbaric. We must free the hostages. Think of it if it were your brother, sister, mother, father, child.
Well, just
Any
wait.
one of us would be insistent on that. But as you have indicated, it's not a matter if you do it, it's how you do it. And to do it at the expense of children and their well-being is really what Chuck was addressing.
So the problem with her saying that is she's placing the weight of that on Israel. That's a decision Hamas keeps making. Israel has nothing to do with this. By the way, Barchet, thank you. That's pretty funny. He says, James, stop screaming. Never. You're never going to get me to stop screaming. He's joking, by the way. I mean, this is ridiculous.
So, a classic example, again, any hostage situation. And guys, you've seen the movies. I mean, you've seen the movies. I remember, hostage situations in movies down. It's very easy at some point to blame the police for the hostage situation. You should do this. You shouldn't do that. You should do it this way. You shouldn't do that way. It reminds me of gang killings, and the families of the gang members who were shot by police saving lives say, "Oh, you shouldn't have shot my baby little son. He's so nice." I mean, the fact that he was on a killing spree. I mean, I've even heard this about, police officers who shoot mass murderers, and the family comes and says, "Oh, you should have shot him in the foot. You should have shot him." This mentality, we're dealing with Hamas,
Yep.
who did this.
Yep, that's
and
right.
now you're telling me, wait a minute, but do it nicely.
That's right.
Do it Westernly. Do it, how do you say, with love.
Yep, that's right.
Okay? And some of the people don't realize that you don't treat evil with love.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Golden Bear, thank you. You're keeping me on task. You say, in summary, what is the warning that Jerusalem has for us and what is coming? Okay, I'm really glad you're asking that question because it's easy to get off task because sometimes I make the assumption that all of you are connecting the dots that I'm connecting, and that is not happening all the time, okay? Zechariah chapter 12 makes it very clear to us that as we approach the final day, we will see Jerusalem becoming the stumbling block. We know that attacks on Jews will increase. Anti-Semitism will come to an all-time high. This is a very very, very clear biblical statement. We know that. Now let's put that fact aside for just a second. Let's talk about how Bible prophecy works. When we talk about Bible prophecy, especially in the Bible, matter of fact, when we just talk about Bible geography, so this goes to your question, which is really important, Golden Bear. When you talk about geography in the Bible, when the Bible says north, south, east, west, it's not referring to north, south, east, west in general or as a generalized term as into a globe picture. It is always north, south, east, west of Israel, and more specifically, north, south, east, west of Jerusalem. It's really important that we understand this, okay? Here's the other thing that we have to understand. When you want to look at what is happening in Bible prophecy, and you really want to be able to better understand what's taking place, you definitely want to look at the Middle East as a whole. It's really important. If you were to look at a time clock, the Middle East is going to give you a really good generalized picture of things that are happening. When you want to get more specific, you focus in on Israel. When you want to get down to the granular level, you want to focus on Jerusalem. Specifically, at the most granular level, you want to look at the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
So when I say Jerusalem is warning us, can you see what's coming? One of the things that I want us to look at, number one, is all the rhetoric that is surrounding the world's call to restructure the government of Israel, which directly relates to Jerusalem. Number one, that's one thing. Remember I was telling you I was going to talk to you about this until we were in the middle of the show? That's the first thing, okay? That is a Zechariah 12 principle. The second thing I want people to see is I want people to see the fact that we fully expected rioting on the Temple Mount, this is Jerusalem we're talking about, during the time of Ramadan. We were fully expecting this, right?
Yep.
David's pointing to the picture in the background. Now, I want to go somewhere with this. We haven't seen it. There's no rioting right now on the Temple Mount.
It's quiet.
Now, not quiet, eerily quiet.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, there are members of the Knesset who are considered to be a part of the Yamina party who've actually walked on the Temple Mount during this time. They have literally walked on the Temple Mount and nothing has happened. Okay? So here's the thing. Jerusalem is warning us, and it is warning us very, very loud. And if you can't see where I'm going with this, let me help you see where I'm going with this. Okay? You have the world calling for a government restructuring of Israel. You have the Palestinians being looked at as the heroes when in reality, they are the terrorists that has come into this play, specifically Hamas, right? And now you have something that over the last 20 years, maybe even longer, over the last 20 years, since the early 70s, maybe the last 50 years, we have seen skirmishes taking place on the Temple Mount during Ramadan.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. So what that tells me is this. That tells me is...
James, I want to be careful. I mean, we got 3 more Fridays.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I think we'll probably start to see something if something changes, and I'll explain what that is. Okay? And I know we have 3 more Fridays. But let me just explain this. The world is converging on Israel.
Yeah.
The world is turning itself against Israel at virtually every level. The smart terrorists, the ones that are using their brains, are recognizing this and do not see the need to create a case against its actions by creating a skirmish on the Temple Mount. They already have the sympathy of the world right now with them, and they are not going to do what they can to take their eyes off of Gaza and put it on Jerusalem. There's something major about that, by the way, because if they're that level of quiet, especially Ramadan, that means there's something bigger at play. I think right now, the terrorists, for the first time, maybe in the last 50 years, are recognizing that they have the sympathy of the world with them, And Jerusalem is warning us, you guys. Jerusalem is making it very, very clear that the tide is turning and it's not going to be pretty. This is not a faint of heart situation that we're looking at right now.
Okay, I'm going to make it hard for you a little bit.
Make it hard. I want you to push back because I know where I think I know where you're going.
Let's set this. Okay, if you are a Hamas terrorist sitting in Gaza,
yeah, I know where you're going with this. Good. Okay.
and you've watched all of this happen. You've planned for this attack for 2 years. You've crossed over the border. You're totally amazed that you did manage to pull this off on the Israelis. You're back in Gaza. You're fighting against, and you're saying, okay, now what's going to happen? What needs to happen? And you actually are disappointed that 2 days afterward, the Hezbollah didn't get into the war with you. And a week afterward, then the Iranians didn't get into the war with you. And the Houthis said, we're going to change everything. But even what's happening in Yemen is relatively, I mean, it's nothing.
Calming down. Yep.
Okay. And you were sure that your friends in the West Bank would rise up and start demonstrations all over Israel, and that didn't happen. And you were sure that the Egyptian, the Saudi, and the Jordanian government would not be able to be together with Israel. You're watching all of this happening, and then you've fought and you've lost Gaza. You've lost the center areas. You were sure that you could hide up in the hospital and the Israelis wouldn't get you to the hospital, but they've gotten you underneath the hospital. You've had to run away from the hospitals. Okay, you're being pushed back on everything. You're on the edge of the end, according to you. Yep. And you're saying, wait a minute, Ramadan. There's it's going to happen. And you heard Ismail Haniyeh say, everybody up to Ramadan, everybody get on the Temple Mount. And the first weekend of Ramadan is going on. What are you saying as Muhammad al-Hibli, okay, sitting in Gaza right now? What are you thinking to yourself?
I'm rejoicing. I'm happy.
That none of that has happened.
100%.
None of that has taken place.
100%.
And the only person that is really supporting you is Nancy Pelosi.
That's the main reason why I'm happy.
Okay.
Because the Americans are supporting me. The rest of the international community is supporting me. They can say Hamas till they're blue in the face. The reality of it is the spirit of Hamas is going to continue to exist within the Palestinian world for however long. But here's the thing. It's a danged if you do and danged if you don't situation.
Okay.
If it gets to the point where at some point another flashpoint takes place and you have craziness in Jerusalem, right? Which is something that a lot of people are expecting, and that ends up happening. All it does is it furthers the media perception that they are attempting to create in being able to further their cause. That's all it does. That's all it does. It's forcing the hand of Saudi Arabia to get involved and Jordan's Waqf to get involved on the Temple Mount, and it's something that they want. If it doesn't happen, they're ultra happy because it also helps to communicate the point. They are the good people here and the Jews are the bad people.
Again, he's sitting in that tunnel waiting to see what's going to happen. Is he disappointed in all the rest of the Arab people? Is he happy? Is he more happy about Nancy Pelosi and the great Jewish politician in America supporting him?
I'll tell you why. Because you're thinking like a reasonable person would think. If they are a commander in the military or a major like you're thinking the way a reasonable person thinks. You're not thinking like an Islamic fundamentalist. You're not thinking like an extremist.
Thinking? What is he thinking now? What is she giving him?
Every single action that he took in the initial October 7th plan was suicidal in nature.
Yeah.
All of it was done for a particular propagandist move. Okay? They acted earlier than what they were planning on acting with Hezbollah. They walked in direct contradiction with the wishes of Iran because of what was going on in that moment, right? My guess is their target time would have been probably around Ramadan.
Yep,
Or
Ramadan.
probably would have been January for a couple of reasons. There's a couple of maneuverings that were going on specifically to the north that would have been a better time for all of them to act collectively because what was going on with Beirut in January.
Okay.
It was that. So they fully understood what they were getting themselves into. They were not expecting to see the sympathies of any of these Arab terrorist organizations to stand with them because they have a history of understanding this. They know this. I'll give you a great example of this. What happened in Jordan with those 30,000 Palestinians that were killed was a direct result of a premature action that was taken by a political group that turned into a terrorist.
The Black September.
The Black September. Yeah. Okay? The rest of the Arab world watched it. They did not get involved the way that you would have expected for them to get involved because of the presumptuous action that had taken place. This is a pattern that we see happening. He's not doing what he did on October 7th. You know, any of these leaders did not do what they did on October 7th and walk being surprised. They knew exactly what they were asking for.
You don't think Hamas is waiting for the Arab world to rise up and support them?
Nope. I don't think so. I think they were past that. I think they knew there was a chance that could potentially happen when they made a mockery of Israel on October the 7th. I think there was great potential for that to happen when they started fighting back to the north in Gaza, right? Especially at the big hospital that's to the north there. When that was beginning to happen and they were beginning to hold their position closer to the coast, I think that could have happened. But when that didn't happen by week 2, I guarantee you they made strong their position and dug their feet in because they knew the kind of sympathy that they were getting on the international front. Understanding
but he's
and
gonna
knowing.
understand that this isn't going to save him.
No,
Israel's
he
coming
doesn't
in.
know. He doesn't know that. Look,
Israel's coming in.
Remember, when these people are going in and they're blowing themselves up and they're doing the things that they're doing, they're saying Allahu Akbar, Muhammad Rasulullah. They're Allahu Akbar. That's what they keep saying because they believe that there's a bigger reward that comes from them. So the mindset is this is a suicide mission.
All right.
I went on a training. I'll give this an example. I went on a training with the FBI right after 9/11. And there were federal air marshals that were at this training. And part of the component of the training was use of force. And part of it was how do you respond to what could be a potential terrorist in this situation and in that situation. I'm not allowed to talk about all the specifics of it because there's stuff I'm not allowed to be read in. I was one of the chaplains in this training, which was a very important part of this.
You know I've done the training.
Oh, yeah, you know. You understand exactly what that's like. Yeah. And not only that, but I was also there because of my language and background expertise, okay? Big, long story when my chief sent me there. They spent a ton of money for me being there. I disrupted the training. In the middle of what they were doing, I said, forgive me for saying this, but you all are nuts. and I'm going to tell you why. They're looking at me like, James, like, sit down, fat boy. You don't know. You don't have the physical ability to do what we're talking about. You know, we've been spending more time on guns than you've been alive. And I saw the attitude. I saw it right there. I said, here's the thing you guys aren't taking into account. Okay, your whole life, you have walked into situations. Because one of the people that were there was what was called the SRT. This is the FBI Special Response Team. They are some of the best. They're one of the best entry teams in the country. They're massive use of force team. They're powerful, right? I'm sitting there with these guys and I'm telling them, I'm like, here's the thing that you guys don't understand. What you don't understand is you don't understand the fact that when you go in and you go to detain somebody, let's just say you're sitting down and you're detaining somebody, right? And by the way, these aren't like these are the leaders. These are not the guys that are going in every day. These are all the leaders. It's a command staff type of a thing. I said, you guys go in every day and you hold people at gunpoint. And the assumption is that when you hold somebody at gunpoint, they are going to respond because of fear of dying. What you don't see, and we learned this just 3 months ago, is that they don't care if they die. So if I go to you now and I hold you up and I say, get your hands up, a guy who's saying, Allahu Akbar, he doesn't care. he's going to die.
They don't care.
So you have to learn how to eliminate a threat that you know works on a completely different level. So the way so much analysis right now is happening right now in the Mideast, the way that people are looking at all of this is they're looking at it from the perspective of people that want a better life for themselves. No, what they're doing with Hamas right now is a completely different objective. It is not them wanting a better life for their people. It is them wanting to accomplish the ultimate objective, which is the annihilation of not just the Jewish state, but every Jew alive.
So the way to deal with this, and I am going to go back to my training, okay, is if somebody is saying Allahu Akbar and saying, I'm going to kill you with a bomb, do you take a chest shot or do you take a head shot?
Well, we all know how that works, right? The likely scenario, and it just depends because technology has changed, right? Mm-hmm. So the mindset before was you take a chest shot. That was the mindset before. And the reason why the mindset for that was that if you take a chest shot, then some of the tools that's designed for when they lose consciousness to release the pressure on whatever it was that will create the explosion is eliminated. That was the mindset. Now they're saying you take a headshot. Now that's what they're saying. Actually, they're saying you take a headshot and a chest shot is what they're saying. But the first shot is the headshot. That's what they're saying.
But what Nancy Pelosi is saying, and here's what the left is saying is you should shoot him in the throat first.
Yeah, you shoot him in the. Of course, we know.
I mean, let's be nice to them.
We know
Let's shoot him
That's
in the
right.
foot. Okay, and hopefully they'll get the idea and they'll decide they don't want to let go of that grenade or
Right.
let go of that bomb.
That's right.
And the thing is that what we understand after October is that no, you shoot him in the head.
Yep.
You don't take a
and
chance.
Actually, and here, so for those of you that don't know, the reason why they were trained to do that initially with the headshot is because the traditional way of thinking is this. The traditional way of thinking is you shoot the chest first, at least 2 times, and then you go for the head because the chest is a bigger target. And when you're under pressure, you have a higher likelihood of hitting the target. And then in case the chest shots don't disable them, then of course you take the headshot. Again, this is the training that the military is giving. Now they're saying you destroy as fast as you possibly can the threat.
Yep.
And you destroy it. You don't just disable it. You destroy it.
So I'm going to go back to the classic Golda Meir saying, okay, is that there will be peace in the Middle East when the Arabs love their children more than they hate us.
That's right. And that's such a beautiful statement.
The thing is that we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. And by the way, I want to make myself very clear because I want us to be on the record for this. We have no desire to see the death of anybody. I mean, if you really think about this, if I could go to a member of Hamas right now and somehow, some way bring them into a relationship with Christ and they walk away from their life, that's the goal every single time. If we could neutralize a group of people without using force, man, that's always the most ideal position. That's always been Israel's goal. You don't resort to deadly force unless you have to. But we've been demonstrated to again and again and again and again that if you don't stop them, that's what's going to happen. And this is a discussion from a military perspective. What we're doing right now on this show is not an incitement to harm anybody. I want to make myself very clear here, just to make this official. We are not inciting anybody to go harm anybody else. But what I am saying is I'm saying that this is the situation that they're finding themselves in right now.
When David killed Goliath, he shot him with a stone from a slingshot. Hit him, where it hurt.
Yep.
But what's the first thing he did after Goliath was laying on the ground?
Cut his head off.
Totally.
And it's an understandable place to be in.
Otherwise,
he'll come back and get you.
Exactly. And he says he will.
Yep.
And I think to a certain extent, that's what we need to do. That's what we're doing right now. But somebody is saying, oh, no, be nice.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. Okay, we have spent way too much time, and because I started late,
this all the time.
I know we do this a lot. And because I started late, then we can't do locals. I'm really sorry about that, guys, because we have a meeting coming up here very soon that we have to take. Any final comments, thoughts, anything like that?
The David and Goliath thing that just now came up here is kind of reverberating stronger than I thought it would, because we understand what needs to be done right now.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, that has to, we have to make sure that's never going to be a threat again. But again, here's the thing. We're considered the Goliath now, and the Palestinians are considered the David. And here is how the deceiver is doing his job.
Yeah, that's an apropos picture. I agree. But again, this really does deal with doing the right thing. And I think that if Israel doesn't eliminate the threat, then Israel will not survive. And by the way, I will say this. I want to make myself very, very clear. Israel will never not survive. God said it. If you see the sun, the moon, the stars, then Israel is still going to be blessed by God.
And since we are going into elections, if you need to know who support, check who's supporting Israel.
Yep.
That usually is a good indication.
It's very, very important.
And we just now saw who didn't.
Yeah, it's very, very important. And an overwhelming majority of these clowns, this is the thing that just really kills me about this. An overwhelming majority of these people don't even understand the geography. They don't understand the culture, the people, the government. They don't know any of that stuff.
They don't really. Well, here's the thing. The people they're talking to don't understand the geography, which is why I think we all should understand a little bit more. There will be a YouTube video clip that I'm going to be putting on about the situation today.
We're releasing it at 5 o'clock, you guys.
5 o'clock tonight.
Yep.
And I've just now tied my hands. And
Yep.
the next one, by the way, is going to be
But
really...
we agreed to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So
The next one's going to be really interesting because the next one's going to be a biblical Balagan connection between Israel and the Book of Esther and Iran.
Oh boy, that'll be a good one.
So
I can't wait. I get to be the first person to watch all this because I upload it. But the Balagan Connection YouTube channel, you guys really want to go there. It's growing. There are so many great things that are available on that channel. It's doing really, really well. See how much more it's growing?
Yeah, I see.
See, I told you. It's so
By the way, I'm awed and blessed, and I hope Christy heard me just now. Okay, that this is happening like this.
Yeah, it is. It's a blessing to see the growth. I'm looking at some of the growth. It's exciting. It's really, really exciting. So
help us grow it some more.
Yep. Make sure you guys jump in. Make sure you're a part of it. It's really, really, really.
And if there
really
are things that you want the Balagan Connection to refer to, let me know.
Yeah. This is a great channel to go to, and David's going to be releasing at 5 o'clock. Okay, so we also put up the link there. It's also in the show notes, but it's we're also posting it in the chats
and it's
for
gotten,
YouTube and Rumble.
It's gotten better since I have the beard.
Yeah, man, I love the content. I think the content is really, really, really good.
Okay, thank you.
It's really good.
Thank you, guys.
All right, you guys, we love you. God bless you. Let's pray. Let's close this out. Father in heaven, we thank you, Lord, for this time. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given us, Lord, to dig in, Lord. It's been such a great discussion. Help it all to sink in, Lord. Help us to understand the bigger picture, to see what's going on, Lord. We're so thankful for all that you've done. We love you, God, and we look to you, and we ask these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, really quick thing. Reminder, Friday, I am releasing the video that does all the analysis on the Chuck Schumer thing. You're going to want to be there. Watch it. We're going to premiere it Friday morning. Looking forward to it. We've got a great version of Countdown to Eternity coming tomorrow. Tom and I recorded this one last week, and it is called The Whore That Rides the Beast. Ooh. You are going to want to see this one. We got a great one there. Then we get another great live show coming Thursday, and then Friday. Saturday, we're doing a thing on the food supply problem that the United States of America might be facing very soon. That's going to be an interesting conversation for us to have. And then Sunday and Monday, we've got some great videos planned for you. We love you guys. Keep fighting the good fight. We will see you later. And don't forget, 5 o'clock, Balagan Connection. Grab that video. And by the way, pray for Pastor Tom, as I know that he should be coming back from Jerusalem soon. So pray for safety for them. And God bless him for being out there and supporting the economy over there. So God bless him. All right. We love you guys. God bless you. Keep fighting the good fight.